to cut the methane from oil and gas industry. I welcome our friends in the ecumenical community who will give us context now. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Reverend Burnett. So my name is Shantha Alonso. I am the Executive Director of Creation Justice Ministries. My organization equips and mobilizes 38 Christian denominations, communions, and fellowships to care for and protect God's creation. Together, our members serve 100,000 churches nationwide and nearly 45 million people. Creation Justice Ministries is one of the partners of the National Religious Partnership for the Environment, who is the host of today's event. The National Religious Partnership brings together the major U.S. Catholic, Protestant, and Evangelical Christian, as well as Jewish institutions in shared mission for the care of God's creation. And together, we represent the majority of religious life in the United States of America. As people of faith, we are called to protect God's creation and care for vulnerable people. Today, we're gathering as religious community leaders to pray and speak out specifically for clean air, and specifically about the urgent need to cut methane pollution right now. We're also reaffirming our commitment to the Clean Power Plan, which enters oral arguments today. Now, I'm going to pause because most people haven't heard about this problem, and if they have, they wonder why it is a religious community problem. So let's offer a little context. Methane pollution is the main ingredient in natural gas. When oil and gas companies extract it from the ground, they also leak it into the air, and this is a big problem. And it's a religious issue, because if we respect our Creator, we cannot stand for the desecration of God's creation. Methane pollution accounts for 1/4 of all climate change. According to a recent piece by Midwest Energy News, 70% of Ohioans believe climate change is real. So, we've got to do something about it. Oil and gas wells and other equipment across our country emit millions of tons of methane gas each year into our atmosphere. This is dangerous. 2016 has already had more warmer than average days than any previous year. Methane gas speeds up climate change. 1 ton of methane in the atmosphere warms the climate more than 80 times as much as a ton of carbon dioxide during the first 20 years after it's released into the air. Most of us think of carbon as the big problem. We're all working on reducing our carbon footprints. It's time to also think about methane. And it is a religious concern because we're looking at the balance of God's creation, and we're needing to remember that the first job that God gave humanity in the book of Genesis was to till and keep the earth. That's what we're about here. But climate change isn't the only reason we need to act to curb methane pollution. We also need to do it right now because we love our neighbors. Along with methane, oil and gas wells emit toxic chemicals through harmful practices of venting, leaking, and flaring. This pollution contributes to asthma and cancer. And as our climate gets warm and more dangerous, diseases such as Lyme disease and Zika will become more of a threat. As religious communities, we are first responders when people get sick. We offer pastoral care. It impacts our communities. And we know who gets harmed first and worst by pollution and climate change. It's children, it's older adults, it's communities of color, it's low-income communities. If we love our neighbors, we've got to cut methane pollution. Lastly, methane pollution is just a matter of poor stewardship. It is wasteful. Last year, $2 billion worth of methane was wafted into the air. That is enough to heat 6 million American homes. It's unacceptable. But the good news is, there is proven low-cost technology that is already commercially available to cut methane pollution from leaking and venting equipment at oil and gas facilities. These methane pollution control measures that have been offered to us can help companies address methane waste. And it's not only the faithful thing to do, it's pragmatic. In fact, according to a poll released by Cleveland Plain Dealer last week, 72% of people in Ohio would advise political candidates to support clean energy and energy efficiency. People of faith and the general public know we need to be able to count on our decision makers to level the playing field among all companies so that they can invest in clean energy and become more efficient and cut methane pollution. So today, I want to introduce you to two Ohio faith leaders who will each share their prayers, their faith commitment to clean air, and their call to cut methane. First, we will hear from Rabbi Jessica Shimberg. She is the leader of Little Minyan Cahilla faith community here in Columbus. After that, we will hear from Deacon Nick Bates. He is Ohio Advocacy Coordinator for the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and he is also the director of the Hunger Network in Ohio. Rabbi Shimberg.
Thank you, Shantha. One of my favorite names for God is Breath of Life. So this morning, I want to offer a prayer to the breath of life, in Hebrew, Ruach HaOlam, source of blessings, breath of life. We are aware how small we are on this planet, and yet we take up so much space. We try to make ourselves big with our industries and our resources, our cars and our homes and our buildings, grand as they are. But when it comes right down to it, all we have in this world are one another and the earth on which we stand. It is so important at this time of year for the Jewish community, just as we go into the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, the birth of the year, the head of the year, our new year. This is a time in which we take account of what we've been doing with our lives for the year. And this is certainly a time when we're very acutely aware of how we have done things wrong and how we have within ourselves the capacity to do things right. We aim ourselves toward our best selves, and today that is what we are asking of our legislators. We elect people that we hope and pray will have in their hearts and in their minds what is best for all people, and not just the people who have the most money and the most political clout. We look for those who have the strength of heart and the strength of character to do what is right rather than what is expedient. And today we ask that the breath of life, along with the rest of us, have the opportunity to use clean energy rather than wasteful ways of creating energy for our use. And this we ask with all of our heart and with all of our mind and with all of our spirit.
Good morning. My name is Nick Bates. I'm a deacon in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and the director of the Hunger Network in Ohio. I am here today because God has called us to be good stewards of the earth. And by strengthening common sense public policies, we can protect our environment and make our economy work for everyone. I have met people who have lived in Appalachian communities for generations who still mourn the destruction of the countryside through mountaintop removal. The land remains scarred, trees barely grow, the soil is unhealthy to farm, and it is a sad reminder of the difficult choices that people thought they had to make to survive. The problem is that the choice was false. We do not need to choose between economics or our ecosystem because we need them both. In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth, the light, the rivers, and the oceans, and it is good. And God still has work that needs to be done. Tilling the soil, managing our resources. So God has put this work into our hands to do, to be proper stewards of creation. And then at the end of the Bible, in the book of Revelation, John writes for us a new vision, a vision of hope for our world's future. Crystal clear waters, trees, that produce fruit all year long and leaves to heal the nations. It is a hopeful vision of what God hopes for our world to be. The Christian scriptures are bookended by these two stories of how we are called to be in right relationship with God's creation. God has created enough land, air, and water for us to produce enough food to feed the world. God has created sources of energy for us to be able to power our cities even as technology grows. Our God is a God of abundance. Humanity is called to be proper stewards of this abundance. Methane is a gas that is contributing to substantial damage in our land, in our world, of our land, air, and our water. In equal parts, methane can have an impact 80 times greater than that of carbon dioxide. As stewards of God's creation, we need to transition to sustainability. As oceans rise and droughts come to some and flooding to others, we already see that the poor are struggling the most as a result. We need sustainability. Not only sustainability to protect polar bears in far-off lands, but to protect our brothers and our sisters and ourselves. Because we are all already seeing the impact of climate change. Today, I offer a prayer. I pray that our local, state, and national legislators understand the need for sustainability, both for our ecosystem and our economy. We do not need to choose between a strong economy or a strong environment, because we need both so that all may survive. We need a strong environment, a healthy ecosystem, so that we can have a strong economy. By supporting the international agreements in Paris, national plans as presented forth by the EPA, and even state efforts to expand renewable energy, we can reduce emissions of harmful gases like methane, and we can successfully transition to a sustainable economy that will work for everyone. God has provided enough, so let us go forth and be good stewards of the gifts of God's abundance. Amen.
Thank you to both our Ohio religious leaders for your powerful prayers and testimonies. And at this point, we can open it up for questions.
I have questions, but I'll need to read them.
Do you have any questions?
I don't.
Great.